The Thunyiswa and Bennie families, the other families that were part of the broad origins of Mamu Pemba, the ANC and Alliance Partners family, the broader community of our people, and in particular the liberation movement, I greet you on this sad morning. First of all, I must say it's sad that I am unable to personally, physically deliver my contribution to this funeral. I would have loved ukumngcwaba umama wami. However, recently the president addressed us and advised us strongly against, in particular, people of our age leaving home, and that in terms of the protocols, especially with the latest variant of the COVID, it is advisable for us to avoid interacting out there and spreading, being part and parcel of the problem of spreading the virus. We gather here to pay tribute to one of our elders, Comrade Edith Thunyiswa, sasimbiza umamu Edith Pemba. We've known her as that because those are the names we used at a certain point during the struggle. We do so after our leadership's declaration of this year as the year of unity, renewal, reconstruction, in the year of Charlotte Maxeke. Sis Edith's spirit must be smiling where she is, because she was born in the times of Mamu Charlotte Maxeke's activism and leadership in South Africa in various sectors. I don't want to pursue the issue of Mamu Maxeke except to say I'm quite sure the generation Kamamu Edith was influenced by the life of this pioneer Umamu Charlotte. And we are grateful that the leadership of our movement has given us a whole year to be able to know this pioneer, Umamu Charlotte, who passed on in the late 30s. Umamu Edith was in her early teens when Mamu Maxeke esishiya kulo mhlaba. However, this morning is about Umamu Edith, and therefore I want to focus on these 93 years of life of this great leader of our people and cadre of our movement. Who was she? What kind of person was she? What can we learn from her life? What does it teach us? We have quite a lot of information we've been getting in the obituary, but also from the social media since she passed on. And a lot also has already been said in the funeral itself. But I wish to quote a paragraph from the first volume of a history book called The Road to Democracy in South Africa. Open quotes. In Tanganyika, while stationed at the regional government hospital at Mbete, Edith Thunyiswa helped many ANC activists who were in transit to Dar es Salaam. She used her meager salary to provide exiles with accommodation, food, and money for transport for their final destination, close quotes. In a nutshell, it answers the questions I've posed in one big statement: she had a big heart. Historically, the financial position of the majority of black people, especially women, was such that there were not many choices in life. Most girls opted for either becoming nurses or teachers. Sis Edith went to do both. In those times, government used to offer scholarships for black girls to either train as teachers or train as nurses. That's why most went for those options. She first trained as a teacher and even practiced as a teacher briefly. When she later trained as a nurse, she didn't just become a nurse, she furthered her skills in that area by additionally becoming a midwife. So when later in Tanganyika, she was one of those relied upon to assist in helping to train Tanzanian nurses, she was well qualified for the task. Wayekhuthele uSis Edith. Those who were in Tanzania will remember her big body, her energetic, moving up and down, in and out of the office, into the van, running around doing the movement's work. In addition to her professional nursing job. She served our people as a very hardworking, practical representation of solidarity. The solidarity between liberation organizations in different countries of Africa. The agreement for the ANC to send the 21 nurses in response to Tanganyika's request was not a one-way gesture. It was part of a package of mutually beneficial responsibilities in which the ANC also benefited. A free Tanganyika, along with Zambia and other neighboring countries, opened up a lot of opportunities for Southern Africa to have its liberation struggle proceed and the liberation movements to establish offices and locations for the activities of their members on behalf of our people's struggles. Let us remember, the nurses were not the first South Africans to leave South Africa. Already, to highlight one important and very substantial group of people, in February 1958, a group of 1,000 ANC members left what we now know as Northwest for Botswana, and they had already, when the time came for the nurses to arrive, they had already gone ahead and created a solid underground movement for us. And these were people who had left when there was a government crackdown on them, and those communities of Bahurutse, people of the northwest part of our country, after many activities against passes that were being forced on African women. I am convinced that from this particular life, we will continue for many more years to extract a lot of lessons and examples from which, if we were to learn and organize ourselves better, future generations will benefit more. Today, let us agree, here lies a woman of whom we can be proud. Here lies a woman without whom the story of our road to democracy would be incomplete. The third and my last point relates to some of the debates I've picked up in the social media space, which is, in my view, misdirected and can't go without comment. I must say that the comments I'm about to make are easy to distort or misunderstand, and one risks opening up a can of worms. However, I'll make them anyway. I'd like to start by acknowledging and saluting the souls of countless lives of freedom fighters over the ages, whose lives were part of the sacrifices during more than 3.5 centuries of fighting for our freedom. This is how long it has been. Each life was as precious as the other. In this context, let's not be victims of recency, whereby only those events of what is called living memory is important. We must appreciate all contributions and brave deeds, even of those things that happened a long time ago, of those people we never knew or heard of. They were also very important. In this regard, I'm conscious that many who were freedom fighters, who played important roles in the struggle, including in the labor movement, mass mobilization, underground activities both inside and outside the country, including in particular the armed struggle, the MK and APLA and others, and the international front, especially as led by the leadership of President O.R. Tambo. Many of those people are still alive and able to express their opinions and narrate whatever they remember. So they have that advantage. There are quite a number of inaccuracies and distortions which unfortunately are too many to deal with. It must also be acknowledged that a lot more must be done to address the welfare needs of many families of former liberation combatants. Whatever outstanding services, be it in the area of education for their children, healthcare for the activists themselves and their families, and accommodation needs, all these have to be delivered to all deserving comrades according to the records that our government has. Otherwise, it simply becomes a source of bitterness and ongoing negativity that then fuels some of the social media stories, because there are fresh wounds and people are talking all the time in negative tones and only remember bad things and not the constructive things that happened during the struggle. The reason it is critical to deal with these matters practically is to help redirect our attention, redirect our energies and efforts correctly. An example of my concerns is the tendency not to appreciate African countries' positive contribution to our struggle and freedom. No one claims it was paradise. There were problems, there were weaknesses, some were also under pressure from the enemy, our enemy. But we must learn from our ages-old saying, sisters and brothers share the head of a low caste. Many South Africans will attest to having lived and worked peacefully as part of many communities all over the continent of Africa for many decades, not just in 3 countries as it is claimed. This is not to negate the fact that a lot of bad and cruel atrocities were visited on some South African refugees, etc. over the years. And those stories must be told. We must listen to them. We must deal with those issues to the extent that there are skills we can apply to help a healing process among people who were victims of these situations, of the imperfections that did happen in the struggles. We must also never forget that citizens of many of the countries that hosted the refugees and South Africans that were involved in many areas of the liberation struggle also suffered and died as part of what's referred to as collateral damage. in the cause of our liberation struggle. I'll never forget when in 1985 the South African Defence Force had come into Gaborone, how the breast of a young Botswana woman was found among chaos that had been as a result of the blasting of a servants' quarters, which many years before the Boers had information was accommodation for some of the underground comrades and combatants. But now all of that had changed, and there were domestic servants who were just innocently sleeping there, and this woman was blasted, and we only found a breast of this Botswana woman, young woman. So it is important for us to take trouble to know this history, not limit ourselves to only that which is of immediate interest to us and those people that we knew. Let us also familiarize ourselves with other perspectives which will help us balance our understanding and our debates. And that will enable us to continue to play a constructive role in the current era of unity, renewal, and reconstruction in the year of Charlotte Maxeke. On the African continent and internationally, even after we finish our role as chair of the African Union. I thank you for listening to my few words as a tribute to this gallant fighter, and I encourage us to visit this history of the road to democracy in South Africa. I heard from one of the writers and authors, Dr. Sifiso Ndlovu, that they are now on volume 10 of this history. And the story of Sis Edith is told in this volume, which I want to show and encourage people to read, because it's an important history for South Africa to know, because without understanding that history, our understanding of the issues and how we must relate to the rest of the world that were part of our anti-apartheid struggle would always be limited. Hamba kahle Mbokodo, ufezile umsebenzi wakho, amandla